You're listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, the place to learn about new technology and technological advances before they become mainstream. This podcast is sponsored by Dell Technologies, a unique family of businesses that provides the essential infrastructure for organizations to build their digital future, transform IT, and protect their most important asset, information. Let's get into the show.
Welcome to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro. I'm your host, Keri Roberts, and my guest today is Steve Tuomey, a data center compute executive at Dell. Welcome, Steve. Thank you for being here today.
Keri, thank you guys for having me on the show.
So today we are talking about how to have better conversations with customers and grow financial opportunities for your business. Can you take us through some of the questions partners should be asking their potential customers or current customers about really figuring out what they need so that they can bring value but also grow their business?
Keri, there's actually a lot of questions that we can ask our customers, and a lot of that really focuses on how well you know that customer. But I'm going to drag that back a little bit to what part of the question that you asked was, is it's really important to have conversations with your customers. If you're just talking at your customers, or if your customers are just talking at you and you're not listening, you're really not building that rapport to get into what their mindset is, to where their mission is. And that is the most important part, because once you know what their mission is, now you can really start asking those open-ended questions to how they want to get there. How do they want to solve the problems that they have? So questions, very open-ended questions like, what is your target architecture? While it seems so big, once you have that rapport, that can be a great starter, because all of a sudden they're going to look at you, they're going to look at the partner and say, wow, he really wants to know where I want to go. He doesn't just want to sell me the latest widget.
And can you maybe share with us some of Dell's products and give us an example of your sales process with one of them?
So as you may know, Dell Technologies is actually a leading technology company, but it's actually made up of many different technology companies. Technology companies such as VMware, classic Dell, and also EMC, our storage portfolio. But as the nature of these fast-paced technologies is, they constantly change. And so Michael Dell and the leadership team have really looked at this, and they've aligned these technology companies into 4 key technology and transformational pillars. These pillars deal with applications, they deal with the classic IT technologies that we know, they deal with the workforce, so the actual users that are using technology, and of course within the federal government, they also deal completely with security and keeping the information secure. These pillars are very powerful because they align with the way our customers, so your customers, Mr. Partner, do business. So utilizing these pillars, it's actually extremely easy to grow your business because that pillar really emphasizes the way that that partner is going to land, so you can land within your account and then grow within that pillar because it's the same group, the same technology information center. They can continue that growth. So I like to pull together and I like to really formalize. I actually have this little theory of mine. It's called land and expand. And so land and expand is really a powerful message of I'm going to get in there, I'm going to talk and have these conversations with my customer, and then I'm going to actually probe and ask around ancillary technologies, technologies within the same pillar. So if I'm looking within their data center, within the IT transformation, maybe I'm going to ask some questions around data protection. Maybe I'm going to ask questions around networking, because it's the same group, it's the same budget, and I can gather and expand my business with pretty easily at that case. And to give an example on this, very recently, actually, probably about 3 months ago, so during the current virtual world that we all live in, we actually have a federal system integrator, an FSI, that contacted us about they needed hardware for their labs, for one of their labs. And so the Dell team went in and they worked with this lab, just a single lab, and they've actually deployed a technology called VxRail, one of our data center technologies. Pretty simple, very easy deal. However, in those conversations that they started with that research lab, they also brought in some of the executive management to see where they were trying to go. And again, with those conversations, the management said, well, they actually have additional research labs. And so just within a few months, that opportunity that was a singular VX rail became something so much more. And the land and expand really flowed here because by pulling in additional resources from Dell Technologies, specifically VMware in this case, we were actually able to showcase a multi-tenancy solution. So a solution where 2 or 3 or 4 labs could use and share the same hardware resources, called VMware Cloud Foundation. And so this opportunity where they landed with a simple target, simple structure, grew and started expanding into different platforms provided by Dell Technologies, specifically VMware, but we've also started working with the networking team as well. So this has expanded to cover approximately 15 or 16 of their labs now, all shared, all multi-tenancy, with the ability now to go fully hybrid, move some data up into the cloud as well.
Now, you do a lot of work, as you kind of mentioned earlier, within the federal vertical. How does this vertical differ from others? And can you share some examples of how the conversation would go?
I've been working, so a little bit of my background, I came to Dell Technologies from VMware, where I was also working within the federal government. And one of my observations about the federal government is that it is a vertical, but it's also very vertical, very, very siloed. So when you're talking to that IT team, they're completely and only looking at information technologies. And that's a good thing. However, it's also a very hard thing to land and then expand out of that group, grow your business naturally. And so when you put the land and expand philosophy in, sometimes the federal government looks like there's a lot of roadblocks there. Again, talking to the IT manager, I don't get any insight sometimes into what the mission is trying to do, what that company, what that division is actually trying to do. So opening up the scenario, talking with and having a relationship, something even simple like having a relationship with a procurement person can actually lead to an opportunity just by, again, asking those simple questions. So, hey, with this infrastructure that you just purchased, very tactical solution, what other areas are you guys looking at? One of the examples I love to use is a recent win by one of my partners is they went in with laptops. So again, thinking of today with COVID, they went in with a solution for laptops. And while they were talking to procurement about where these laptops were growing, they asked that procurement officer, it's like, how are they managing? How are you managing all of these new devices that you're purchasing? And that procurement officer came back and said, I have no real idea, but that would be Mitch over here in this group. And what we were able to do via procurement was get a warm introduction to another team. We landed with some laptops and then expanded into some of the device management. So the tremendous example where even though the government has vertical blinders, they still talk to each other because they have to. And so we can utilize their warm introductions to expand our business, your business, within your customers.
I think that's a really good point. What you're saying here, Steve, is that you can talk to one department in an organization, whether it's federal or not, and you sometimes need to talk to a different department for something else. But if you have that introduction from the first person you talk to, it's going to be an easier way for you to upsell or to sell more products and services.
I completely agree. And in fact, I'm going to go one step further. From a Dell Technologies perspective, we win approximately 85% of the deals that we register, that you guys register, that you partners register with us. And so it becomes a very important avenue. Getting these warm introductions, again, talking to the procurement guy around laptops and where they're being shipped to, and then being introduced to Mitch because he thinks Mitch might be looking at end user device management. That was a registration. We called, we talked to Mitch. After about 10 minutes, we had a decent idea of what Mitch was trying to do. Something new. for Mitch, but for us, it was something that EDM, our end device management with VMware, we registered that opportunity. And today, being only 2 months further, they're actually already in procurement. They're looking already to be purchasing this end user management. Very, very important to make and understand that it's the relationship sometimes that can drive your business better. Just asking in a friendly manner, hey, what are you guys doing with this stuff? Where are you going with your technology? Being that helpful person as opposed to, hey, I got another 50 laptops, you want to buy them?
Yes, 100% yes on that element. It's always, I always think about it as being educational and helpful rather than pushy. And I like that you're making that distinction. When a customer says no to working with a partner or a new product they're offering, what do you think the most common reasons are? And do you have any suggestions of what the partner could do to increase the likelihood that their potential customer would buy and still do it in an ethical way?
So this is a tricky one because sometimes when you really look at everything, a lot of people really think decisions come down to the money. And to be honest, they do. But really, in my experience, the inertia of a situation is the biggest reason a customer says no. For instance, I have a customer, they have classic 3-tier infrastructure. They have servers, they have some connectivity of some sort, and they have storage. Well, their entire team understands how that works. I know my storage, I know my connectivity, I know my servers. And so talking with that customer about today's newer technologies, maybe Dell Technologies PowerStore or VxRail, it's a hard talk track to have with the customer because the customer's sitting there going, I don't understand that. I don't really recognize that. And so the reality of the situation is it's really not about the money of the new system because the new systems actually generally are about the same or sometimes even less expensive. It's about, I know product XYZ and you're showing me product J. And they just don't have that feeling, that good feeling that they can understand the technology and implement it. And so with that in mind, we have a ton of products, and sometimes it's one of the most confusing pieces of Dell Technologies. Do I pitch a quote-unquote PowerStore? Do I pitch a PowerScale? We have a lot of products out there to help fill in and solve people's problems, solve our customers' problems. But this is where Dell really comes to bat for you, because you have us. You have myself within the channel team, but you also have the end user teams that can help you. When you identify a customer that has a need, if you bring in the Dell team, A, they're going to help you register that opportunity, but B, they're also going to help you work with that customer to overcome that inertia, to get the customer moving forward, modernizing their equipment, modernizing their philosophy on the way their IT works.
I like that what you're saying here. You're saying, okay, they understand this type of software, but you're presenting them something else. And so there's kind of a disconnect there. How do you kind of make that transition? Because what I've noticed is a lot of people are trying to sell a software and a potential customer already has something. They want to either continue using what they have or they want the software to work with what they have. They don't want to change. So do you have any suggestions of kind of how to make that discussion move in a way where there's connection for the potential customer?
So this is where technology runs into management style and runs in executive style. And so this is one of the roles that the Dell team, that Dell end user team, their account executive, their data center person, my peer on the end user team, they've become very powerful. They have messaging to assist with the management, so the IT management, the executives that are over that, to really help them look at the way the mission is working. Because IT doesn't stand alone anymore. IT doesn't run a server and then everybody comes. If you build it, they will come, is not the way it works anymore. We're actually being driven more and more and more by the application teams, by the device teams, by the artificial intelligence teams. These teams need to be included, and they need to be included early in our discussions. So as you work with our classic customers, the IT guys, Ask them questions about applications. Ask them questions about, where are you going? Again, that open-ended, what is your target architecture? And then bring in your Dell sales team. Bring in the Ingram Micro sales teams. We have a tremendous amount of knowledge to actually work with not only the end users themselves, the technical teams, but we can actually start working with the business drivers. We can start working with the executives to craft and to explain why they want to maybe look at a more hyper-converged architecture, why they want to look at archiving to the public cloud for pennies on the dollar in some cases. There's a lot of technology drivers to help overcome that inertia.
So you're saying that Dell can provide basically sales education and services to partners to be able to help them articulate better in sales conversations?
100%. In fact, for all the partners that are listening to this, one of my roles through Ingram Micro is completely and utterly do exactly that. So contact Ingram Micro. You can have me come out and help with this land and expand philosophy. I can give sales trainings on our newest products, but there are tons of resources behind me. We usually call it our core 5 team. We have an account executive who's in charge of all of your products, so all of the CSG, your laptops and desktops, as well as the data center. And then you have specialists like me who concentrate on data center. And then behind me, I have specialists that concentrate on our Isilon product, our storage products, our networking products, and the software, of course, VMware, et cetera. We have a ton of people that can come out and help you craft that sales message. And then as the added benefit, I was customer facing for most of my career before I joined VMware. I and most of my peers are very comfortable going with you to your customers, whether it's virtually today or once we get back into the swing physically. We enjoy visiting our customers with our partners to help build those relationships.
Can I ask you, how often do your partners utilize this type of service where you have someone going to help them with the sales piece?
So just looking at it from myself, because I can't speak to all my peers, I usually get called 4 to 5 times a week. Say, can you come to a meeting? Can you be on this phone call? Generally speaking, due to the fact that I do a lot of other education and enablement for our partners and for Ingram specifically, I usually make 2 to 3 of them. So I help customers. I do get involved in deals every now and then because I used to be an engineer. I actually do help with sizing and putting together that initial architecture before I turn it over to the end user team or to the partners engineers. So there's a great deal of help that I love working with customers. Every environment is different, and it gives every single day that I work with customers that extra little blip that I can go back and say, I did something. I worked with the customer. I learned something new or a different way of looking at a problem.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, whether you're a partner or not, and you're not utilizing this service, I would highly recommend it. I think especially with the way the world is now, there is kind of concern of how do I sell something? How do I do it in the right way? And I think it's great to hear that Dell, Ingram, a lot of the partners on this show are providing that service that I think a lot of people could probably be utilizing more than they are right now.
I completely agree. I mean, for all of our partners, speaking from Dell Technologies, but I'll be honest, I've worked with a lot of different manufacturers through Ingram Micro. We are actually here to help you. I mean, yes, it makes bigger sales for you. It makes bigger sales for us. But the reality is we are all part of IT, and we all like to see IT move forward. So please use us. I mean, we're here to help.
Yes, I love that. And that brings us to our question we ask all the time, moving IT forward. Where do you see technology going within the next year?
So there's a tremendous push out there, and I'm going to give just a little bit of historical on this, at least the way I feel about where I think we're going. And I think if you look back in time, you'll see that communication's always been the heart of who we humans are. Whether we were yelling at each other across a field, talking to each other in a hall, moving forward with technology and talking to each other on phones, on the early telegraph, moving that forward to AT&T and Ma Bell and actual phones, to the cell phone revolution, to the internet and all this connectivity. Connectivity is the heart of who we are. And so when I look at technology, I look to see what's next from a communications perspective. And today, that's 5G and Wi-Fi 6. So if you really want to look at where technology is growing, look at what 5G is going to enable for us. It's going to enable better communications. It's going to make less time between a communication 1 and a communication 2. It's just a tremendous upgrade to the way all of our devices are going to be working. Auto-driving cars, for instance, will probably all have 5G technology so that they can respond to each other in circumstances so that they can avoid accidents, they can avoid traffic. But even spending that out, looking at devices that enable our health, we're going to have 5G connectivity so that we can get the most accurate health data off of our quote-unquote smartwatch or smart band, whatever they come up with next. And so 5G is tremendous, and that's going to continue to push data and data analytics. And so when you look at data, that's storage. When you look at data analytics, that's going to be compute. And so 5G connectivity, the ability to talk faster and more clear, is going to drive the technology field to bigger, larger, more powerful solutions. But we have a problem. This very moment, we have coronavirus. And so while I think 5G and this communication is going to be the next biggest thing, we've hit a little bit of a pause button. And so looking at the way we work and looking at the way your federal customers work can actually be a much bigger, quicker bang for your dollar, because I need, and the federal government needs, to be able to do their work from the safety of their homes. And so virtual desktops, virtual applications, upgrading people's networks and security, really right now is a huge, gigantic part of what the federal government's trying to do. So we've hit the pause button on 5G. We've really switched to the way users do work. But as that problem and as those problems get solved, better experiences, faster communication from a user perspective will unpause 5G, which is going to play into the rest of the digital upgrades.
Now, if people have questions about what we talked about today, especially if they want to utilize more of the services to help them with the sales process, as we spoke about today, where can they connect with you or do that to ask more questions?
So a lot of the technology that I talked about today, some of the customer wins actually that I mentioned, are actually all on the Dell website. If you go to the Dell website and you type in some of the white papers and some of the technologies, you'll see a lot of the information there. But really reach out. Going to a website is a great thing. It's very easy to do. But sometimes just making that phone call and reaching out. Look for myself, a channel advocate who can help all of you. That's my job, is to help my partners. But look at Ingram Micro. They have a ton of resources dedicated to helping you, not only helping you find information, but actually teaching you and enabling you on information or questions you don't even know to ask. And so we're here to help you, working together with the quote unquote web technology. We're going to hopefully be able to really teach you, enable you, and enable our customers to do a better job for all of us, because we're talking about the federal government here. And in the end, we, the federal systems and the federal citizens here, are the end user customer that we're helping.
And we'll be able to link up some of that in the show notes, as well as your LinkedIn. So if people have questions, they can do that as well. Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing your insight and providing the great service you do to your partners.
Keri, thank you guys very, very much for having me. And please feel free to reach out.
If you like this episode or have a question, join the discussion on Twitter at Ingram Tech Soul with the hashtag B2B Tech Talk. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro.
You've been listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, hosted by Keri Roberts. This episode was sponsored by Dell Technologies. B2B Tech Talk is a joint production with Sweetfish Media and Ingram Micro. Ingram Micro production handled by Laura Burton. To not miss an episode, subscribe today to your favorite podcast platform.